Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the community call today. We really appreciate you taking the time. We're going to wait about 30 seconds or so to have people join. So get some coffee, use a bathroom break, etc., and we'll be right back. While we're waiting, if you want to add a comment on where you are watching from today, that would be awesome. Let me go and put some music on while we're waiting. Let's see if we can hear that. This is our first live stream, so we'll see how it goes. Oh, great. 1 second. It says YouTube is not working real fast. Let me just check that before we get started. Oh, we are. Awesome. Okay. Nice to see you all. Perfect. Comments are working. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us today as it is our first official live stream of the community call. So very, very excited to have all of you here. Let's jump into some of the just operational parts of the call for today, and then we will jump into demos. So as a reminder, we do have a Discord channel where we have all of our conversations. Many people are in there having a great time. So if you want to go into our Discord, you can ask questions on the general channel during this live stream, or you can ask it on YouTube. So either one, I'll be monitoring both and making sure any of your questions that you put in there are heard, or tagging the speakers so that way they can answer if we don't have time to answer during the live stream. And then if you want to submit a topic, if this is something that you'd love to present on, please DM me on Discord. That's going to be the fastest way to get on the agenda for our community calls. Okay, next, we have a few events. We have 2 separate meetups. The one in San Francisco, that one is not on our events page yet. We're getting the link very soon, but we have 2 of them in August. So very excited to have our first meetup in India, actually, that one of our community members is running, and Vikram from our team will be presenting there too. So it's really cool. And then Solomon will actually be presenting with Lev from our team at the SF one. So if those are any areas close to you, please go to our events page and check out those links in RSVP. And now we can get into the agenda. So Diego is going to show us a Kubernetes demo today. We're really excited to see how that goes. And then Tom is actually going to be showing us one of the latest feature updates with the context directories. And then Chris is here to demo the new experimental Dagger PHP SDK. So very excited to get to show that off today. I know he's been working really hard with Paul and many other community members to get that off the ground. So excited for that. Okay, Diego, let me move everyone else from off the stage here. And then we are going to share your screen. There we go. Okay, go ahead, Diego.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for having me, first of all. Yeah, I have just a couple of slides to introduce a bit the context and explain why I'm referring to this Avengers series. And apologies for whoever does not follow on that. I just put a quick translation of the problem on the corner here. Yeah, the main theme of the presentation will be, okay, I have an end-to-end test suite for my Kubernetes components. I have a software that runs with different components on Kubernetes, and I want to avoid the typical push and pray. And so this is at least the starting point for which I started to evaluate Dagger in this context. Again, I'm working at the National Institute for Nuclear Physics in Italy. And before going ahead, just let me start with a comment that for now you should just ignore, but it's just to demonstrate that we are doing things live. So I'm starting this call. It will take some minutes. So for the sake of time, I'm starting this right now, and we will come back later once I introduce the context. Okay, so this is starting, I think, so we can go back to the presentation and maybe going full screen. All right. So the context. There are three main players here. The first one is a European project that aims to construct an interdisciplinary digital twin engine. Means that you need most of the resources you can get from HPC centers. In this case, it's a European project, so from Euro HPC centers and from any providers that is participating into the project. We are talking of hundreds, thousands of GPUs in these centers, so quite a lot. Also, same apply to national projects like the ICSC, that is the Center for Research on HPC, Big Data, and Quantum Computing in Italy. So the two players, the InterTwin and ICSC, in which INFN is working, have in common two main features. The first one is that you need access to a lot of GPUs. The most you can get, the better it is. But on the other side, there is a kind of a constraint in which comes the presentation of today. So the tool that we are going to test using Dagger. So we have different science domain that, fortunately enough, are converging toward using Kubernetes frameworks. So this is fine with us. What is not fine with us is that these GPUs in the HPC centers are usually not running on Kubernetes, so are served via batch systems, because this is how science worked so far, and that's for many other reasons. So what we needed at this point is to match the 0.2 with the 0.3 with what we call virtual nodes. And virtual node, again, in a few sentences, just allow me to introduce what we are talking about. It's a black box that you put between the user request to run a pod to the remote resources. So you translate this request in a job into a supercomputer to run your container. And all of this should be as seamless as possible. So you want to streamline somehow the creation of virtual node on Kubernetes. And the tool that we are going to test is Interlink, and I left the reference here. I'll also share the link to the presentation later if you're curious about it. So these components, this tool is composed by two main components. The first one is a Cloud Native Foundation one, that is the virtual kubelet. So it's a technology that is there to create the abstraction from the Kubernetes perspective. So you submit to a node that is not a physical node, but it's a virtual one. So it's able to ask for particular custom logic, a remote server. The remote server is the Interlink server. So this is a pluggable REST server. You should imagine like this, that allow to plug your logic. Means this container should run in a Slurm job with this configuration, this and that. Yeah, so this is the situation, and these two guys can talk either via Unix sockets or HTTP REST. That's up to the topology that you have in mind. Well, yeah, I know it's pretty fast, but it's not the core concept of the presentation. The core message that I want to share is, okay, we are pretty happy with mostly anything of this approach. We started really in since few months, and it's going pretty good. We had a presentation at the AI Day at KubeCon, and we did some scale tests. We started having early adopters, and here start the problems. I'd say the problem that we want to solve with the Dagger integration. So yeah, let's see now what is actually the problem. The problem is that in this particular scenario where you have a custom component of a Kubernetes cluster, you have something that should run somewhere else that should talk to this component that is running inside Kubernetes, things start to move too much, and it's easy to start losing the control on the development. Because I changed something that looks harmless, but for some other providers, it's crucial. So it starts to be very quickly a problem that we want to address. And also, we want somehow to get from the provider, so from an HPC center that is using its own plugin, I want to guarantee that each other release of the software won't break the plugin that is in place at the current time. So yeah, I suppose it's not so weird as a scenario. I think it's well in line with many other cases. And what triggered our curiosity in this context was, well, before the module, it was the discussion in Discord channel about running a Kubernetes cluster inside Dagger runtime. But then definitely the module that was shown by Marcos last time definitely triggered pushed our interest in it. And yeah, we work into prototyping a first approach for our use case. And this is why today I'm presenting them, actually. So what this means? Yeah, that from our perspective, we have all the tools in place for the particular case studies. So we are able to submit a pod that is running instead on a Slurm supercomputer, but we need stability as much as we can get. And so we need one last stone. And I think we started to demonstrate that Dagger can be one of that. So the solution I'm going to showcase is a module that starts from the K3S module provided in the Daggerverse and implement 3 main additional tasks. The first one, we set up a K3S cluster plus a local registry. We want user to be able to rebuild any binary of our software without the need to internet connection. So we now need to push and pull continuously images from a remote cluster. So we want a local registry, and this is really awesome, I would say. So the task 1 is the initiation, if you want. And the task 2 is the installation process. So we have a call that will be able to instantiate the different components in would say in a flexible manner. I will come to this later. And eventually, the task 3 is the exit strategy. So you want either to do a test or to instantiate a test environment. So run a terminal or get access to the Kubernetes cluster from the host. So these are the 3 tasks that we implemented so far and are summarized here. So we have a new call that instantiated the K3S. We have a build that build images and push to the local registry. And then we have the load one. So you start instantiating your components. And at the end, you have a test or run command. So as I mentioned before, we started like, okay, this is a cool tool for end-to-end. What I find interesting is that we are also starting to think that it might be also a good get starting package for our user or newcomers. So you give some command that bring up everything they need to test our environment. So it might be more than an end-to-end tool, an end-to-end test suite, let's say. So yeah, these are the questions you want to answer, but let's move on. And I think if there are no questions regarding the concepts, I will move to the demo. So first of all, let me ask here, and okay, the module, it's very basic. Is, as any good physicist, is not well documented yet, but I suppose that if we get convinced that is the way, we will get better. So we produce anyhow an introduction of the usage with a basic command in our documentation. So it's it's not perfect, but it's a good starting point, I would say. So the modules here, we have different code, but I rather go through the code to show you what is happening in here. So we start with creating, well, these are the templates because we want to select the image from the local registry with the name that is indicated by the user. And then our module interlink is this one. So we need a registry. We pass the manifest for the installation in a directory. We have kubectl, kubeapis, and kubeconfig that we can either automatically instantiate through the K3s module, or we can use, the plan is to use also an already existing Kubernetes cluster. So this kind of flexibility is quite the key in our scenario. And okay, so we instantiate a new interlink instance, and the core start here. So oh, sorry. So you see again the flexibility that I mentioned before. We start, we pass, we can pass a set of optional configuration depending on the scenario. If we are running local registry instantiated from the Docker, from the Dagger call, this will be filled automatically. Otherwise, we can pass a service from the command line, and this will be take immediately. So we can even use a registry that is running outside the Dagger runtime. So then we have a plugin endpoint. This means that the final plugin that is responsible to talk to the Slurm cluster in this demo will talk to a Docker daemon that is remote with from the perspective of the Dagger runtime, will be executed outside Dagger. It can be also instantiated inside, but for the sake of simulating a real scenario, I will put this plugin running outside Dagger runtime. And then there is the core instantiation of the K3s cluster. This is the module from Marcos that showed last time. So we instantiate the module with the configuration, say, okay, look, you need to mount some directory and you want to also have the capability to talk to the local registry. And also to the plugin service that we run outside the Dagger. So this service here, this line here, oops, this line here means that you have the binding to the plugin running. We start the service, we store some variables. Some of these can be broken. I'll talk about this in the chat later, but for my fault, mainly. But yeah, they're not fundamental, this step. Okay, scrolling down, there is the templating for the manifest. So we update the image name with the correct ones. And we set up a kubectl container. So this is the one responsible to interact with the cluster. So we mount here, we mount the file from the kube configuration. And down here, instead, you can see that we are mounting the manifest. So the YAML that are responsible to instantiate all our components. And okay, then what else? We have, okay, we go ahead and we instantiate here. This is the part to instantiate all the required components. The other call is build images, as I told you before. So build images is the one responsible here to bring up the registry and build our binaries, put this into images, and push the tar of these images into the local registry. So I didn't find any easier way to do that. Maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it's not a problem from my perspective. You should also just do an extra step when you build an image. You should pass from the tar and then do the push to the local registry. Not really a showstopper, I'd say. And then we have our exit strategies, if you wish. So we have a kubectl that is only instantiating the Kubernetes cluster and return the reference to a service. We have a run that is actually doing all the preparation steps and log you into a container that is ready to run tests interactively. And then there is the test call that do the same as run, but also here in the last line, there is the PyTest that we put in place. So PyTest is the test suite where we test different kind of pod and we test the responses. So we test the whole chain and we understand if at any stage, plugin, interlink, or the virtual kubelet, there are any issues. So we collect a series of default pod that should work. We want to be sure that that kind of pods are working. Okay, so that's all from the code perspective. There are few calls and that we are going to see working in practice. So what I just started before is a command that looked like this. Let me just recover. So a Dagger call, a Dagger call with a certain name that is the parameter to identify your module, your instantiated modules. So your cache will get the name that you already dictated here. Then you build images from our source folder. You see here I'm in interlink/CI, the official repository. So we want to mount everything from the interlink to be able to build our binaries. It's not optimal. We are working through that, but yeah, it's good enough at the moment. Then we have the new interlink call that we saw before, and we pass the plugin endpoint that we run on the localhost. I show you in a second, and the link to the manifest. So the dot manifest, if I show you here, ls manifest, in here I have all the customization that we want to use to instantiate the services. And so with this command, we can see also, I think, from the Dagger cloud. Come on. Okay. So from the Dagger cloud, first of all, let me show you why this is so intriguing for us. This is my local history of failures running tests. And this is the one from the official GitHub actions. And you see that the story is quite nice. There are some flaky errors, but yeah, when things get complicated, you see it can happen. But well, we couldn't achieve this before having Dagger and telling us that, yeah, this is something very cool. Okay, so I wanted just to show you the different steps. So we started from interlink, we instantiated interlink, and we did the build images. So all the images are built and pushed to the remote registry. So you see here, we're pushing to the remote registry. And then we instantiate our components. So we bring up, we bring up here the K3S server, and yeah, we have everything running smoothly with the server start, and then eventually we do all the installation step of our container, and we end up at the end of the story installing our manifest, our customization here at the end. And the test part is just building the container for the test and then doing PyTest rclone. And the output is quite satisfying. As you can see, all the basic tests that we have in place are passing. So this is a very cool scenario for our needs. One very cool thing, in addition to this, okay, just to tell you that I'm not cheating, this is the daemon for the plugin that is running, so the one responsible to run custom containers based on your pod requests. It's receiving a request and it's running, you see? So everything is working. The cool thing I tell you before is that we want to also provide this to users and telling them this exact thing. Let me go back to the documentation. The dream is, okay, you can test the whole chain with a single command. That's cool. But it's not cool like, okay, you have everything set up. So you have a Kubernetes cluster with everything installed. You can bring it up and start working locally with that. So you can have your repository, you can test different components, you can push different images to the local registry, and you can start iterate and testing in this way. And with this approach, we need just few changes. Exactly, we need just to change the exit. So we need to call kube and up, bringing up the service. And what is happening is just here. So the service is up. I started this before. Sorry for that, but it is taking too much time for a demo. And you see, the command is exactly the same. I have just done kube up. So what you can do at this point is the following. You go here, we clear the screen, and we can get the kubeconfig that we need. So my local test should be this one. Yeah. We got the kubeconfig. It will retrieve the kubeconfig from the running service. And all right, hopefully it should take very few time. Okay, you see it's retrieving from the cache the K3s YAML. Okay, true, it's copied. I can export, oops. I can export kubeconfig and say, okay, get pod, and you have a functioning working service that you can run and instantiate all your manifest and so on and so forth. So yeah, there is a wish list, of course. I don't want to go too much deep into this, but of course we want users to be able to deploy things on their own Kubernetes cluster. Should be trivial, but not implemented yet. And we want to provide also additional command for developing environment for different components, for all the different components. Yeah, so this is the situation and what I wanted to share. Of course, there are a lot. At the moment, the tests are taking kind of 10 minutes. I think we can drop it dramatically if we start using caching mechanism quite wisely. But yeah, that's a working point. I leave you here some references, and I also take the occasion to share that we are going deeper into this. I'm playing live, trying to learn as much as possible next Tuesday for in this live. This is also the context for the community if you are interested in the tool itself. Yeah, thank you. That's all from Sal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Diego. Yeah, we should probably make Thanos part of our actual branding or something. Those are great slides. And if you don't mind, when we move on to the next show, if you could put the links for your next live stream from your channel, and then also the link to the module you were using, that would be awesome. And if anyone has any questions as we keep moving on, please feel free to, again, put it in the Discord channel or on YouTube, and then we will answer them in those chats. But for the sake of time, let's move on to Tom as well. Thanks again, Diego. Appreciate it. We're going to add Tom to the stage here and remove Diego. There we go. And add to stage. Go for it, Tom.
Right. You can see my screen. All good?
Yes, all good.
Nice. Okay, so hi everyone. So I'm a software engineer at Dagger, and I want to present a new feature that I've been working on since quite a long time, which is called context directory. Before that, though, I want to share like a quick story, like why we developed context directory and what problem it solves. So if you have already worked with Dagger, I'm pretty sure you can recognize that kind of pattern. If you work with Go indeed, but it will be the same in TypeScript and Python or any other community SDK. But usually when you do a module for your CI, you take a source as a directory as input, so you can execute function on. So this is a usual pattern that you have. We actually have the same in our Dagger module. And this is usually the Dagger command you will enter when you wanna, for example, run the test. So Dagger call, so that just shows then your test. So you're gonna forward as input your current directory. And it has always been like that. You always need to provide the directory you wanna execute your function on. And this is good, actually. This is nice because as interlink or like any other community module, you want to allow people to send a specific directory as input. But what about the module that you have in private? So this is a two different type of module you can do. What about the private module that, for example, you use for your CI? This is something we do at Dagger. We have a dev module that is not public. It's exclusively used for running our test, generating our SDK, etc. And this, for that kind of modules, the input, the directory input is static. It's usually the same every time. And so here is an example with our current Dagger module. And we came up with a solution with views. So maybe some of you already used it. It's a way to basically filter some directory by creating views in your Dagger JSON. And then when you do a call, you will do, for example, Dagger call, -m dev call, and you can do like dot and put a view here. And this is going to use this view and exclude all these patterns. This is cool, but it's kind of a lot of work to support views for every function, especially if you have like different requires for some of them. For example, you have CI for backend, CI for frontend, everything in one module. You don't want to create like X views for X function. So we came up with a solution, which is context directory. So this is an example of the code. Indeed, I'm going to do a demo. The idea is that you can directly from the code get what you need. For example, here, I want to get the backend source directory. So I can use the metadata default path and use the /backend, so the path to the backend. And I can add some ignore, which are compliant with the .get ignore syntax. I'm going to cover that just after. You can also include your current directory. And so one of your questions might be, okay, what is a slash and what is a dot? What is relative? What is root? So I prepared a quick schema. This is a simple tree view. And so we have two things. We have the context directory and we have the root directory. The context directory accessible from slash is where your .get belongs. So it's the root of your repository, because maybe your CI module is somewhere else, like in a subdirectory. So with context directory, you have a way to access the root of your repository from the code itself. And if you want to access something inside your module, so where your Dagger.json belongs, here, you can use the relative path. So there is two different paths. And indeed, if your Dagger.json is at the root of your repo, the slash and the relative path will be the same. And you can use ignore to remove entries from the input. So you can use only what you need. And as I said, ignore is compliant with the .get ignore syntax, meaning that if you had an exclamation point before something, you will actually include this for this directory while if you don't have the exclamation point, you're gonna exclude something. And bonus point, it also works with file. So like if you have some config file that you wanna include every time you run a function, you don't have to set it as input anymore. You can just use the context directory feature. I'm going to show a demo after so you can see. So why this is useful? First, it removes parameter from the CLI. You no longer need to provide your repo as input. Why? Because this is going to be the default input now. So you can just do Dagger call test, and backend, frontend, and module will be filled with your directive, so with default path and the ignore. Second cool thing, those directories are loaded before the function is called. So it's easily cacheable, and it has some point of optimization at this point. So your module should be faster thanks to this. Especially because also you can choose to include only files that may not change that often. For example, you will not include your .git, which is probably the directory that changes the most in your repo. So you can exclude it directly, meaning that it will be cached more often. And the third point, which is super cool, is that the function chooses what it needs, and it can ignore the rest. So you reverse the dynamic. You don't create views to send as input to a function. Your function will actually explicitly say, okay, I need this and that, and it will be filtered automatically. So it will really improve the DX and also the speed, and overall, you should have a better time with Dagger thanks to this, especially if you have a lot of input. So demo time. So I took the greeting API, which is a simple API that Kyle made for demo, and I basically tried to convert it to context directory. So I just updated Dagger JSON to a new version. Something I didn't precise, a context directory is still in development. It's not merge nor release. So it's more an update. But if you wanna keep track of what's happening with this feature, there is a peer I'm gonna link after. So we got a module with like a couple of functions. Like if I do Dagger function, we should have like test, lint, build, serve, release, and deploy. And before using context directory, if I want to call test, for example, I need to do Dagger call test and provide the source. And for every function, every time I want to do something, I need to provide the source. So it's kind of like redundant and it doesn't feel really right. So that's why we made this now. We made the context directory. So I provide the default path, which is /, so my whole repo, and I will choose to ignore everything that I don't need. So to run test, I will take benefit from the include pattern, which is, as I said, adding an exclamation point to only include my Go mode, my Go sum, and my Go files. So I don't need, for example, the website directory or the .github.circle.ci or anything. And so now I can just do Dagger call test, and automatically the input will be filled. So that's super cool. Most of the input I saw when I was working with module was sources or files and stuff like that. You can get rid of this thanks to this feature, and so it will be approximately the same for every other function, and it feels way better to not forward any argument when I call a function. It feels like a makefile, but way better because it's done in Go and with Dagger. So same for the build. Basically, got the same UX, like our build, and let's say build here, and so I can build a function. And oh yeah, forgot something. So you can still give other parameters. It's not going to be an issue. It's just like the source will have a default one set to the context, to the contextual argument that you said. Okay, so this is for my demo. It's pretty simple because the feature does not change that much in your module. Which makes it super easy to adopt, but it really changes the DX after. And so what's coming next? We would like to add the ignore directive on any directory, not just contextual, meaning that when I talk about public and private modules, like the context directory thing will be way more appropriate for private module than public. But when we will be able to add this ignore directive, the public module will also take benefit from it, because they will be able to filter what they need to execute the function, no matter where the directory or file come from. And there is also a small issue with contextual argument for submodule dependency. So I'm actively working on it, and when this is done, we're going to release the feature. So stay updated, and hope you will find this feature very useful. Something I forget to precise, it's the link of the peer. This one, 7744. So if you want to get more update or just try the feature right now after the community call, feel free to give it a shot and give me some opinion in comments, and I will be more than happy to pick them up. So thanks, and hope I've not been too long. So yeah, thank you everyone.
This is great, Tom. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. People are very excited about it, so it's great to see. And as people are using this, like, we always want feedback. So if you aren't already in our Discord channel, please join. Just put all your raw notes there, and we will happily take it and make sure to read it. And then, and then Tom, you mentioned you'll put that PR in the chat so people can check it out as well. Perfect. Okay, well, let's move on to Chris. So if you are a PHP fan, this is going to be really awesome for you. So let me move Chris to the stage here and add Chris's screen. Awesome, and go for it.
Hello. Well, this is what we've sort of been working on for the past couple of months. And I'm going to go through this in maybe a bit more depth, because I'm hoping there are some sort of PHP devs on the call that may not be completely familiar with Dagger as a tool. So what we've had up until about a week ago, when this initial implementation of the SDK was merged, was we had an SDK which wrapped around the GraphQL API in Dagger, which basically allowed you to programmatically interact with the Dagger engine. And you could do a lot of things with that. You could build containers, grab directories, move things around, do a lot of the stuff that I'm going to show today. But what we've added now is module support, which allows you to actually build a module and incorporate other modules from other people and share them about, so you can have reusable components in your CI pipeline that you can reuse either internally, or you can actually publish them on GitHub and on the Daggerverse, and they can be reused across any project that anyone's got. So if I make a start.
Before you get into your demo, Chris, do you mind making it just a little bit bigger, if possible?
A bit bigger. Hold on a minute. Yeah, let's do that. Where do we go? Should be a presentation mode in here somewhere. That didn't make it bigger, did it?
Font sizes are always fun.
Should have done this earlier.
Well, so I can test out if the music sounds cool. If it's not working, no worries.
Right. Google to the rescue.
I see some new people joining. So if you're just joining us, welcome. We're just fixing the font on this real quick, and then we'll get started on this PHP demo.
That's not actually zoomed in at all, has it? That's not made it any bigger at all. That is not very helpful.
We tried our best, no problem. I don't want to throw you off too much, so we can just get started.
Okay, well, we'll try and make do with what we've got. So when you're building a module, what you would need to do is start off by initializing a module. And you pass to the SDK flag, which is currently we're going to be using the GitHub URL. However, there's a pull request that is hopefully going to be in for the next released version of Dagger, which actually puts an alias in for this. You don't need to worry about remembering this long SDK path. And I will give it a directory to go into. And that will start. What this does is it's building, use the current SDK to run code generation from your local Dagger engine instead of just the default one. So it grabs all the functions that are available on the GraphQL of the local Dagger engine, and sort of automatically generates this SDK directory, and then does a composer install so it's available to you. And it generates you your module file, which looks like this. What we can do with that then is this is like the default module. All of the SDKs are default generating this module file, which contains 2 Dagger functions, which we've just got echo function, which I can demonstrate using Dagger call, passing in my module name, and then the function name that we want to call, and with a value. And that will instantiate this function, and what that's going to return is a container, which we'll see out on the command line here. And then if we can continue to use that container object, and we can call one of the methods on the container object that's been returned from the SDK, and we'll actually see the value coming out of the function call. So having a bit more of a dig into what we've actually got here. In the generated code, the way we tell Dagger what functions are available in our module is we have Dagger objects, which are classes which contain Dagger functions. So in order to expose a method on a class to the Dagger engine, you have to basically put the attribute on the Dagger function. And you can also add documentation to explain what the function does. And further down, you can also see we've got this argument tag, which you could use to document the arguments. And if I just demonstrate that quickly here, you can call the Dagger functions option, which will actually show you the functions and all the descriptions on them. Now, obviously, everything you can see you're doing inside the functions is what we previously had on the SDK that was available if you'd install it through Composer. But now these are actually reusable. So here's one I actually created earlier, which is a PHP module. And what I've built in here is a fairly basic module. And what this does is it creates a container from the PHP standard Docker container PHP images. So they've got several different variants: Apache, CLI, the FPM version, which you can use. And they've also got all the various different PHP versions. So this is actually a module that I created when we were testing all of this. And what we can actually do in this demo module is I can actually install that module, which was created earlier. This is where the real power from this new module SDK comes in. Now that we've got that, the Dagger engine will have regenerated this SDK for us. And if I now go and add a new Dagger function to our SDK, it actually adds to the Dagger object. It adds the PHP module that I've just installed here. So you can actually call the functions which are defined here directly from the other module. So we can do a CLI here, and I can also add extensions. This is a small function that I've added to my my module. Is one of the functions on it is with extension. And then we grab the container. And then if we do something like an execute and PHP -i, and then we just get Dagger to re-scan the module, the new function. That will pick it up. And then you see that function will now exist in the module output. So we've got this new hello PHP function. And if I run this function and grab the standard out from the container that we've returned, we'll actually see that it's calling the submodule, grabbing a CLI container, and this is going through all the setup from the module that I created earlier, installing Xdebug. And after it's finished that, we've got the whole PHP info output, which shows Xdebug is there. We've got a container. It's based on the PHP container. So this obviously gives you a lot more power and reusability of CI things, and allows us to continue building on Dagger for building pipelines in PHP. And hopefully we'll be able to build on this. There are still a few functions that are missing from the SDK, but most of the core Dagger abilities are already built into the SDK. So you can use all the Dagger built-in functions, and you can actually create your own. One of the things that we had there was this PHP container special object, which allows for adding extensions to the PHP container before you return it. So we'll be able to build things for like common PHP CI tasks that can then be reused and just pulled in as part of your pipelines and speed up building pipelines, make them very usable, and getting all the other advantages of Dagger. Were there any questions from people on that, or is there anything else people would like to have a look at and see?
Let's see. I don't think there's any questions right now. But yeah, Solomon mentioned in the comments of just thank you to everyone who's worked on this. Yourself and Paul, I know, have been leading a lot of efforts, but there's so many other people on our Discord PHP channel. So very, very excited to have this showed off on the community call now, and especially our first live stream too. So thank you for that. If there's people who want to help contribute to all the work you all have already done, what would be your advice on doing that?
Probably the best thing is jump in the Discord, jump in the PHP channel on that, and just ask people. I'm monitoring it pretty actively. So if people have any questions on how this works, if we've got something that's not working properly, want to just ask a question. And there are a few sort of tasks that we're sort of working through in the background at the moment to just add some of the more of the features. There's a few things that we don't quite support yet, and there's a few sort of like quality of life fixes and things that we want to get in, just general tidying up and improvements, and just general stabilization. I think the best thing you can do is actually check this out, give it a try, see if you can break it, and then we can sort of hammer down any bugs and get this from like an experimental type designation into like a properly robust and production ready SDK. I mean, that's the best thing people can do to help right now, is to actually use it and see what it can do.
Great advice. And one of the questions also that came in was there anything surprising or challenging along the way as all of you were working on this?
I mean, probably a bit of the difficulty, I think, when we were working on it came from the fact that the actual runtime. So the way the modules work in Dagger is that all the like Go is the only language that has like first class support. So all of the other SDKs need a Go module to power the PHP module. So it's kind of not having done any Go code before, it was kind of like trying to dive in and figure out what the existing SDKs did to make that work, and then modifying that for PHP. So I think there's probably a bit more work to do on the Go module to make it like tidy and neat, because it's been done by a few PHP developers who maybe weren't sort of experts with Go to start with. But yeah, I think that was probably the biggest hurdle to get started on this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for the advice, for the demo, and also letting us know what people can help with next. So thank you to all of our speakers. Let me bring them back on the stage real quick. Like I mentioned, if you want to be like one of these speakers here and who did all the amazing demos today, please just DM me on Discord. That's the best way to get on the agenda. And yeah, thank you again for everyone for joining our live stream, bearing with our first one ever. We look forward to seeing all of you again in 2 weeks. Thank you. Bye, everyone.